It is Thursday, April 25th, and the Splash Zone is back in your life. I am Matt Moze, and I have 4 NBA player props for you guys to lock in for tonight's NBA betting slate. We have 3 games on tap for tonight, so I'm going to have 1 pick in the Cavs Magic game, 1 pick in the Lakers Nuggets game, and then I'm going to have 2 picks in the Knicks versus 76ers game. Of course, before I can get into today's bangers, got to do a recap from yesterday's bangers, which was an amazing day. I was very, very happy to finally have a very good day on these NBA playoffs. I gave out 4 picks yesterday. We got all 4 of those bad boys to cash up just under 4 units of profit because I had 1 play that was for a half unit because it was a pretty juicy ladder play. That cashed. I wish I had played that even more, but I am not going to be upset about a 4-0, 3.97 unit of profit day. We cashed out Herb Jones, Chet Holmgren, and Caleb Martin over 1.5 made 3-pointers. And we cashed out Al Horford over 7.5 rebounds plus assists. Really, really good day yesterday, which was nice because the first 4 days of the NBA playoffs had been hit or miss. So I'm not saying they were bad. We were up like, I think a quarter unit heading into yesterday's slate. So it was nice to have a very, very good day, which we did. That now brings our total profit. If you look at the entire season, we are up about 117 units of profit, which is amazing. Let's hope we can get to the 120 unit mark of profit today. And then if you just look at the playoffs alone, as I mentioned, I was up a quarter unit heading into yesterday. So I'm up a little over 4 units on the entire playoff. So nice to have that day yesterday. If you are not already, I would recommend subscribing to my YouTube channel. This NBA season has been incredible, so you're not going to want to miss that. And then, of course, if you could like and comment on this specific video, I would appreciate that a ton. And then the last thing I'll mention before we get into the bangers is just a shameless plug that I do have a Dub Club. It's where I send all of my picks out for only $5 a month. The plays that you get on Dub Club, they are the same exact plays that you get on YouTube and on Twitter, but you get them early. You get them sent directly to your phone, so you're able to lock them in before the odds change. And with the playoffs being going on and with books opening lines early, I've been sending out a lot of my player props the night before, sometimes 2 nights before, and a lot of times we are getting good closing line value. So that's kind of the logic for spending the $5 a month and getting the Dub Club. But if you'd rather just get it for free on YouTube and Twitter, totally cool. Now that's enough of that. You're only as good as your most recent bangers. So let's see if we can continue to splash around and get wet today. Starting in the Knicks versus 76ers game, I'm taking Joel Embiid over 1.5 made 3-pointers, minus 130 odds at FanDuel. I will admit, I probably should have said this before. This is a pretty square card, both in terms of the juice that we are drinking for the odds and just the plays themselves. But I really liked all 4 plays. So even though the fact that they're square, which I normally try to avoid, I'm still pretty confident that we're going to have a good day. And the squareness of this card does start with this Joel Embiid prop over 1.5 made 3-pointers. He's just been shooting a lot more since he returned from his knee injury on April 2nd. He's been shooting a ton more if you just look at his attempts. I don't know if it's because his conditioning isn't quite there, so he doesn't want to bang down low. If he's just too tired, he doesn't trust his knee with that high engagement type of plays down low as well. Or maybe he worked on his jumper during his time off and he's much more confident in it now. Whatever it may be, you cannot argue that he's been shooting a lot more since he came back. Now, he did not make 2 3-pointers in his very, very first game he returned from injury. That was on April 2nd. Since then, he has cashed 2 or more made 3-pointers legitimately in 7 straight games since then, which obviously includes the 2 playoff games against the Knicks as well. 7 straight games making 2 or more 3-pointers. And 3 times in that span, he actually made 3 or more 3-pointers as well. Now, yes, the fact that he's making them is great. What I love are the attempts. That is something that you can bank on game over game. I don't like betting on players after outlier shooting performances. When you look at their like how many 3-pointers they made versus their attempts, like someone shot 6 of 7, I'm going to be weary of them the next day. That's not the case with Joel Embiid. He's attempted 6 or more 3-pointers in 5 of his last 7 games. And if you look at the 2 playoff games against the Knicks, he's attempted 8 and 9 3-pointers. And it's not like he's shooting at a crazy efficient number either. Look at how well he shot in these 2 games with the 8 and 9 attempts. He's made 2 3-pointers in both games. So 2 of 8 and 2 of 9. That is something that you can count on moving forward. Him going at least 2 of 8, 2 of 9 from 3-point range. And even if you think that volume is too high, and he's going to go down to maybe even 6 attempts, that's fine. He could still shoot 2 of 6, and that would not be that great of a day. But it's also possible that his efficiency goes up as well. He's at home. They're down 2-0. They're going to need him to show up. And he could still make 2 on only 4 attempts, which is exactly what he did against the Miami Heat in the play-in game. Generally, I admit I stay away from -130 odds. It's like the steepest that I'll go with these odds. But at the -130 price, I even thought it was worth it. And I even, like, if you want to take him to make 3+ made 3-pointers as well, you put a half unit on that at +240 odds. I don't think that's a terrible play either. If you don't want to eat or drink the juice of -130 odds, that's probably where I would pivot. Or you could take both and really cash out if he makes 3. Regardless, I really like the play. That's our first one. Next up, Cavaliers versus Magic game. Evan Mobley over 0.5 made 3-pointers, -125 odds at DraftKings. So another big man 3-point prop, this time with Evan Mobley only needing to make 1. Now, these were normally plus money, so we're not getting the best price that we've gotten in previous games. Even the -125 odds is not steep enough to scare me off of this Evan Mobley play. And I actually do have an official ladder play on him as well. I laddered him to make 2 3-pointers. I put a quarter unit on that at +375 odds at Bet365. So just a quarter unit there, nothing crazy. But this is just a play kind of similar to the Embiid one, similar to the plays that I had yesterday. The Magic, they just don't guard him. They're going to let him shoot wide open 3-point attempts and say, look, if you make 1 or 2 a game, that's fine. And I'm not going to tell you that Evan Mobley is Dirk Nowitzki from deep, but he can knock down 1 wide open 3-pointer per game, which he's done pretty consistently recently. He's made at least 1 3-pointer in 7 of his last 10 games. And if you look at the 2 playoff games in this specific series, he's made at least 1 in each of the 2 playoff games against the Magic. So he's also had 4 attempts in each game as well. In game 1, he shot 2 of 4. In game 2, he shot 1 of 4. And I think him putting up 4 attempts, that's something that I think could easily happen again tonight. And he's shown the ability to at least make 1 of 4 3-point attempts. And I like the fact that all of his attempts that he's taken against the Magic, they're either considered wide open by NBA.com's standards, which is meaning you have 6+ feet of space when you attempt your 3-pointer. Or if they're not considered wide open by NBA.com standards, they're considered open by NBA.com standards, which is just 4 to 6 feet of space. So he's taken 4 attempts in each game, right? 2.5 of those 4 attempts are wide open, and 1.5 of the 4 are considered open. Now, that's not a crazy high volume, but looking at how Evan Mobley shot in the regular season, he shot 36.8% on open 3-point attempts, and he shot 40.5% on wide open 3-point attempts. But really, his shooting has gone up if you look at the end of the regular season. So if you just look at the last 10 days as opposed to the entire season, he shot 55% on open 3-point attempts, and he shot 40% on wide open 3-point attempts. Now, obviously that 55% on open attempts, that's a little bit of an outlier, but even so, he's shown the ability that he can knock down 3-point attempts if he's open or wide open. And even on limited volume, all we need him to do is make 1 to cash this out, 2 to cash out our ladder play. Very confident in both. That's our second play. Third up, in the Nuggets versus Lakers game, I'm taking LeBron James over 8.5 assists, -120 odds at DraftKings. Another play that you could probably put in the square category. But another play, I'm not betting on the fact that he had 12 assists in his last game. I'm betting on his potential assists, which have been awesome through 2 games against the Nuggets in this series, and were awesome in all 4 games against the Nuggets in last year's playoff series between these 2 teams. LeBron had 18 potential assists in game 1, and he had 17 potential assists in game 2. And that 17 potential assist number, that is something that I'm very confident that he's going to be able to hit tonight and be able to hit at a consistent rate. Because look at his playoff series last year as well against the Nuggets. So he actually went over the 8.5 assist number in every single game. But more importantly, his potential assists in those 4 games was 15. That was in game 1. That was by far his lowest. Then he had 17, 22, and 17 potential assists. So that's 6 games that these 2 teams have played in the playoffs the last 2 seasons. He's had 17 potential assists in every single one of those games except for 1. And in the 1 game that he didn't, he still went over 8.5 assists. So expecting him to get 17 potential assists, as I mentioned, I think that is a completely reasonable number. And normally, he had 12 assists in game 2, right? Normally, going over your prop by such a high number in the last game, that would normally scare me off a bit. But 12 assists on 17 potential assists, that is not some crazy outlier potential assist to assist ratio, right? Like 12 to 17, that's pretty reasonable, especially when you consider his assist ratio, like his conversion rate in the regular season. He averaged only 13.2 potential assists, so the number has definitely gone up in the playoffs, but that makes sense with more minutes, with higher energy and stuff like that. But in those 13.2 potential assists in the regular season, he averaged 8.3 actual assists. That's about a 63% conversion ratio, between 62 and 63%. So if you're telling me he's going to get another 17 potential assists, which we've already talked about is a pretty reasonable number, even if he doesn't get the 63% conversion rate, if you just say that's too high for the playoffs, that's fine, because we would still have some wiggle room for him to have 17 potential assists to get at least 9 actual assists. And that's all we need to cash this bad boy out. Let's hope LeBron comes through for us, respects our coin once again, as I did go through. I did go with him on last game between these two teams. And then our last pick of the evening, fourth and final pick, we're heading back to the Knicks versus 76ers game, and I'm taking Jaylen Brunson over 28.5 points, minus 115 odds at BetMGM. So I went with Brunson in game 2. He burned me. He did not come through. I'm going to give him one more chance. I just find it incredibly unlikely that he is going to continue to shoot as poorly as he has in this series. In game 1, he shot 8 of 26. So I saw that and I said, perfect. I'm going to bet him in game 2, thinking there's no way he's going to shoot as poorly in game 2 as he did in game 1. Technically, I was correct. He didn't shoot as poorly. He shot worse in game 2. He was 8 of 29 from the field in game 2, shooting worse than he did in game 1. And he's been 1 of 6 from deep in both games as well. So his 3-point hasn't really been any different from games 1 to 2. And I totally get that Jaylen Brunson has not scored a bunch against the Sixers this season. If you look at his game logs against the Sixers, I get it. He has not scored a ton against them. But trust me, I'm a 76ers fan. I watched every single second of these two playoff games. And despite the fact that I wanted to stick a knife in my eyeball, I still watched both of them. And the shots that he was missing, those are shots that Jaylen Brunson can make. We saw him make them in the playoffs last year when he had a couple good games. We saw him make them basically the entire regular season. A player as good as Jaylen Brunson, which I think he's borderline superstar in the NBA, the shots that he's missing in games 1 and 2, I have a hard time seeing him continuing to miss them in game 3. I also get it in this game. We're getting a 2-point discount from what we paid in game 2. We took him over 30.5 in game 2. We're getting him over 28.5 tonight. Now, I get why that number is down. Obviously, he's been under in both games, and he's now going on the road. So maybe if you think he's not going to play as well on the road as he did at home. But I will gladly bet on someone as good as Jaylen Brunson, who is shooting close to 30 attempts per game, to go over 28.5 points and to shoot out of his slump, especially when you consider the fact that the reason why the Knicks are up 2-0 in the series, it's because their role players have been phenomenal. Josh Hart, amazing in games 1 and 2. Dante DiVincenzo, amazing in game 2. Deuce McBride, amazing in game 1. Generally, role players have less efficient games when they go on the road in the playoffs. I'm not saying that happens 100% of the time, but you generally cannot rely on role players as much on the road as you can at home. So if they have the same level of success that they've had in games 1 and 2, I would find that surprising if that does. That would not bode well for our Jaylen Brunson prop. Even then, he still took 28 attempts in game 2. But I think that Brunson, if the Knicks want to make it a 3-0 series, want to make it basically impossible for the Sixers to come back, I think Brunson is going to have a good game in game 3. Whether they win or not, I think he will be able to have one. He's a good player. I trust him to do so. And that's all we got. 4 bangers for you guys to lock in. Admittedly, a pretty juiced card compared to what we normally have, but that's just kind of how the board fell to me last night, a couple days ago, as well as this morning. Remember to like the video. Remember to comment on the video. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already. And then, of course, check out my Dub Club as well if you're interested in getting everything sent to you for $5 a month. But that's all we got. Appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.